Welcome to Mind Over Splatter. We are reviewing the Scream movies. We are ranking the Scream movies. We are talking about the history of the Scream movies, everything you ever wanted to know about this franchise. As always, we've got Will O'Donnell here with us. Will, how's it going?
It's going great.
As usual, we have Sheldon. Oh, wait, hold on. That's not Sheldon. Hold on.
Welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter, and with me, as always, is Dylan Ferguson. Dylan, what's happening?
Not too much, trying to muddle on as best I can in this post-Scandival world where everything's changed and nothing is what we thought it once was. And
this is the new normal.
It is, and it's hard to wrap your head around that, like just talking to people on the street and realizing that you just have to go on with your life. Like the other day, somebody was trying to talk to me about some bullshit about like Ukraine or something, and I was just like, this is very disrespectful of you right now, considering what we're all going through. But, trying to move forward all the same.
For sure. Well, if you haven't listened to the show before, each week we bring on a guest who doesn't follow Bravo and make them watch the shows to get their outsider perspective. This week we're joined by Will O'Donnell. How's it going?
It's going as well as one can after such a force of nature is thrust upon my every sense. I'm in recovery, we'll say.
Yeah, you seem a little shook.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Rattled.
What was it specifically about your experience watching this that was particularly rattling?
That weird sense of experiencing what seems like everything, like just that's everything is possibly happening at once, but also somehow nothing. Like just like when a sheer wall of nothing hits you, and you're sitting there and you're feeling it, and so you're having this like existential crisis that nothing. I'm being bombarded by nothing, and yet it's overwhelming me. It's exhausting me. My senses recognize that something is here, but it's like my soul feels like it's gone on a hiatus. It's gone for smokes. It says, all right, I can't take this, but your body can, so it'll sit here.
Your soul went out to get smokes and a carton of milk, and it's still not back for some reason.
I mean, this has happened before. It's my Christmas soul. I know when it comes time for holidays, it'll come back because it knows there's a free dinner. But outside of that, it's it's not even a weekend soul at this point.
What you consider nothing, I consider one of the most narratively dense experiences that you could have while watching television. So I think we've got a very different perspective on these things that I'm really excited to explore. But before we get into it, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what your previous experience with reality TV or shows like Real Housewives or Vanderpump Rules?
I recall like the early days of I had a very strong interest in what seemed like the birth of whatever the current wave is. Like when Big Brother was a new thing. I can't imagine I'm dating myself too badly here. It's not that long ago, but I started when it was still like reality TV. Yeah, like reality TV still had a little bit of that game show aspect, and then the Osbournes came around, and I was intrigued as a huge metalhead and an Ozzy fan. It's taken me years to accept that Ozzy Osbourne himself is just a dancing bear for Sharon, and so like it's just him being trolleyed out, and he's not sure. He doesn't know where he is, but bless him, he still can perform. And so I had I had a lot of the same infancy that everyone else does, but as far as what's currently happening, I'll tune into a Great British Bake Off or something of that nature. Not so much I'll say this: the closest experience I have is Kroll Show. Basically, that's the most recent example of like reality TV, like a complete parody of it, which having dipped back in now and watching these shows, I just realize how tragically accurate things like publicity and other sketches are. Thanks to Nick Kroll. So he kept me abreast of what was going on, basically.
It's interesting that you bring up the Osbournes. One of the things that has been kind of like common with all of our guests when we ask them what their experience with reality TV, they often reference Jersey Shore, which is definitely a obviously very influential in the realm of narrative reality TV. But the Osbournes was such a huge like cultural phenomenon that I'm surprised that you're the first person to mention that, because it does such a fantastic job of carving out these characters out of real people that I don't think that it gets a lot of credit for when we discuss reality TV in general.
Yeah, like that seemed like the initial boom, because it was the following celebrities, because then there was the like Carmen Electra, Dave Navarro series, of course, then like the Jessica Simpson kind of like that seemed to be a bit of a tipping point where it lended itself more to, okay, what if people were just pathetic and their intelligence, like they couldn't even possibly learn a script if they tried, and so let's film that kind of, not some people who aren't doing anything kind of took over, whereas I recall it being like, yeah, people who just have oddball lives, up to and including, I guess, the Surreal Life, but that's still more of a game show. Yeah, the Osbournes felt like the real beginning. Obviously, I know I'm sure you guys have talked about how like in England it's a whole different thing. Like their grip on reality TV is so much so heavy-handed, and it's humongous there, the way that they follow. Like they have like the 24-hour channels for their Big Brother's feeds where you can tune in. There was a hotel room I was just flipping through the channels, and they had the 24-hour feed for Big Brother.
Are you sure that wasn't just like the CCTV channel? Like, it was staring at the lobby all day long.
It was just, yeah, like security camera footage of people sleeping, occasionally the kitchen or something. There's a video I have somewhere, possibly on my phone or somewhere saved, of me reacting to that I took that because I went to the hotel, tipsy as ever, and I was just mad at what I saw. I'm like, how is this television? And so I started reacting very strongly and passionately about every time they did a shot of an empty table in the kitchen and like the vase.
So it's interesting. I don't want to get too like far into the weeds, because I could talking about Big Brother. But I'm curious as to what you saw, because I think that Big Brother UK, they at one point did away with their 24-hour live streams, which typically reside online as opposed to an actual TV channel. But they might have that there. I know in North America it's typically just
I don't
online.
know exactly. I mean, as much as I reacted strongly to it, I didn't investigate too far into what exactly I was seeing. I assume, based on how it was set up, like it was clearly a Big Brother style household with the simplistic color palette, not a lot of words around. It was just very like the way it was set up, clearly meant to house like up to 16 people at once.
Yeah,
with a bunch of
sounds like around. It sounds like it was Big Brother,
or a knockoff.
I mean, I would say
a very
that
similar knockoff, maybe. I don't know, but that
the
was
Big Brother houses in North America. I wouldn't define them as boring looking. They're very loud and lots of like pattern and stuff like that. But
sure, yeah.
To get back to talking about the live feeds on Big Brother, that's actually one thing about. There's kind of two things that I think make Big Brother specifically the best competition reality show that you can engage with. And one of them, I think, is the live feeds. And the other is the fact that it is happening live in real time. The episodes are being cut in real time, as opposed to something like Survivor or Project Runway, where this all gets shot, and then following that, the producers have the opportunity to craft the narratives that they want and seed the seed the stories early on that they want to flesh out throughout the course of the season. Big Brother doesn't have that opportunity because it's happening week to week, and there's live feeds that people are watching 24/7 that they are able to hold production accountable to a certain degree to tell a truthful story as to what's happening. And if you're watching Big Brother, like if you're watching previous episodes from a previous season of Big Brother, you'll see huge swings in terms of character arcs that you won't see on other reality TV, because the producers haven't had the opportunity to really have as much control over what's going on. And so I think that Big Brother is a fantastic watch, and I think it's also a great like social game. The strategy and social positioning that you see on Big Brother is unmatched, just because you have that sort of raw, unfiltered look. And some seasons are definitely better than others. Big Brother Canada just notably got rid of their live feeds for the season that just began this week. So that's very disappointing, because, like I said, I think it is a pillar of what Big Brother is. But, hopefully we'll still be able to see the same level of dramatic swings within the house get told out just by nature of it happening, live on a week-to-week basis. That's probably enough of me ranting about Big Brother. Let's get into talking about Real Housewives of Miami. It was the season finale. Will, what were your first impressions of all the housewives?
Well, it was funny because I was set up. I didn't watch that first. That was the second show I watched in my watching order. So my brain was tuned differently. And so when they hit me, the first thing I wrote down was waves of surgery. It was just the most obvious thing to the uninitiated, that it was the first thing I saw was a lot of quick cut close-ups of people who are quite literally wearing their procedures on their face. Like it's just, it is right out there. It was also, they, for lack of a better term or a more graceful term at this early hour, I was kind of instantly comparing them to the Vander whatevers. And they felt more real, like right away. It's like, oh, they actually have real problems. Like they're actually discussing things that actually, affects one's life. And it was with that in mind, I was endeared to them faster than I was the youths running around the many restaurants of Beverly Hills in the other show. It was, I was instantly like, okay, I actually can understand, and there's actually something I can, again, for lack of a better term, relate to. Like they actually had problems, and I'm like, okay, I know what this problem is, and it's real, and it requires actual thought and emotion and at least some level of depth. So I was, despite my very low brow initial reaction of just like, surgery, like, yeah, of course. I mean, it's the whole format. It's the fact that these are meant to be people who married very rich in a very rich community known for appearing a certain way. So yeah, I'm not exactly condemning them for that, but it was jarring to say the least. That's just like, oh, okay, right, all right. So everyone then.
You touched on some of these housewives like having real relatable problems, and I think that Miami has this particular episode of Miami. We maybe by virtue of it being the season finale, we got into a lot of the things that we have seen kind of brewing over the past few seasons. There were some particularly touching moments in this episode. I think the scene that with Nicole and her father doing therapy was one of those things. We've seen this relationship be very tense, and Nicole very like steeled off towards her father. And this particular scene, I thought, was one that we get kind of a breakthrough that we've been waiting for.
I love that scene. I found it like very moving, like very emotional, and and it was a great choice on the part of the editors to not apply music until like the end of the scene. You know, they kind of let it stand as a documentary artifact without music because I think they realize that, you know, emotional tension of what's going on. So they resist the usual temptation to constantly try to guide the viewers with musical cues, which they usually do in every scene, of course, in these shows. And let it stand on its own. Yeah, I found that like really moving, the way that Nicole and her father try to reconcile, and how her father is unable to say he's sorry, but when pushed, provides that story, which was really unexpected for me, anyways. Not what I was thinking would come out of his mouth, where he tells a story about how when he was, you know, trying to look after her when she was a kid, and she basically got run over by a car. And the point he's trying to make is that he's afraid that he's going to hurt her. He's afraid that he's not good enough to look after her, that if he tries to, he's going to hurt her. So the conclusion that we're essentially reaching is that he's hurting her by not being enough of a presence in her life because he's afraid to hurt her. And I thought that was a pretty like significant breakthrough. That was coupled with the fact that he can't say the words "I'm sorry."
And the way the editors, I think, handled that was very, very well. I think they were able to bring the tension so that the moment where he's unable to say sorry, it is like played for comedic effect. It's like a much needed break in the tension where she's like, "Well, would you look at her and say that you're sorry?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's sitting there waiting, and he's like, "Oh, what? You want me to do it right now?" "No, I'm not going to do it right now."
Yeah.
That kind of touches on what I found, something I found that the most touching bits in this entire episode had to do with parental relationships. There was despite it clearly designed for the climax to be about the embattled friendships at the party, and all, like, you know, who needs to apologize to who, and all of these sort of friendship tensions. The most meaningful things were seeing the parents, and they're also like, they were brand new to me, so I had a lot of catching up to do. So perhaps that was part of the profundity of it, like just seeing each of the mothers of the group actually having such genuine troubles. Like right off the bat, I felt so bad for I think it's Lisa is her name. I'm going to be horrible with names. I didn't mark note of many names at all.
I think you're thinking of Lisa.
Yeah, it's like going through the divorce, kind of like battling for her kids, that like the sort of disembodied voice on her phone there. He seems like a real piece of shit.
Oh yeah.
And just kind of a, you know, half-used piece of pastrami that's apparently flirting which way through Miami, and just treating her like shit. And that seemed very clear. Like I felt like I just wrote, I felt genuinely bad. I wrote for divorcee because I didn't catch the name, and I also didn't cycle back to any scenes. I'm like, I'm going forward, fresh reaction. No, you know, I don't give myself a second reaction. I'm not going to rewatch any scenes. This is initial reaction. So I just wrote that. I felt really, really bad for her, and just all the parental, like learning more, like as the episode progressed, I got to learn about Frankie, and that's where I had to do a bit of research, because I didn't want my reactions to be insensitive. And so I wanted to know what was going on with each of the kids. And so when, it's Alexia, I think her name is, Alexia's kids. And just seeing the way, and that was a very interesting editing choice. Like I can see how it was obviously like dealing with the one family, but having this very touching bit of montage of her helping Frankie out, and then I learned why, you know, he was behaving a certain way, that the troubles that he's facing, and then contrasting that with this self-important dumbass visiting his dad. Yeah. And he's like, I'd rather go fly kites than help my mom.
What kind of line is that?
And I'm like, that's like, Jesus, man, I could smell the rubber burning when he's trying to think of something clever to say.
Yeah.
It was just the contrast of like someone who clearly is trying hard and has, like, you know, has had dealt with brain damage. It seemed like they're, you know, like in recovery and are just trying to learn the basic mechanics for independence, and their mother's helping them so much, just like here's how to, you know, work a can opener, here's how to, you know, cook, here's all these things, here's some tips on this. Contrasted to like, yeah, I was gonna take out a loan and go to Puerto Rico and like not even tell you guys. And I'm like, yeah, that's a plan for something. Like, gee whiz, yeah, his solutions are to just fly places, and I think he came back from the place too. I don't know. And that was very, and then researching like who the hell the father was, and definitely went, oh, so that's where his money came from. I see. Right. Miami. What is it known for? And it's not just where a lot of pro wrestlers retire. It's there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, Alexia's journey with Frankie has been really sweet and understated this season. I think she's been in this routine of like doing everything for him, and for her to have this realization that she needs to make sure that he can be more independent, and watching her actively work towards that, I think that's something that's really nice to see, and I'm glad that we've continued to see that through to the season finale here. And you're right to have that immediately contrast with her other son and his father, and they are such polar opposites in terms of the type of relationship that she has with her kids, and it was interesting to me to see that,
and how, to nobody's surprise, like, I don't know if like does it matter if I'm like skipping ahead in the timeline here or what we talk about, just because like just like at the end when you had the season finale tags of like what's happened since, and of course he's crashing the honeymoon. It's like, yeah, like of course he's gonna fly his ass to Greece on someone else's dime to ruin something. Like, he'd ruin anything. He was ruining the shirts he was wearing. Like, he just seems like a guy who ruins everything wherever he goes. And so, I mean, as far as like initial impressions go, boy, that guy had probably the worst one on me. That was like, I'd sooner trust the ex kingpin than that dopey sack of hair.
Alexia's ex came across very emotionally open in this, which is surprising to me. I think this is the first time that we've seen him this season, and I thought that in that conversation that he had with Peter, he came across very emotionally open and honest, and looking for a connection with his son. And Peter just feels very like closed off emotionally, and
and he wanted him to like help, like mentioning like, yeah, I want you to help with your mother, like, help with her
salon. Help with the salon,
like, trying to get, not just for his own connection, but for just Peter's connection to anyone in the family. He seems like he wanted it to be, more so, and Peter just wanted to fly kites and fuck off to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, maybe the most self-interested person that we see during this episode would be Peter, and that's saying a lot considering we see Nicole's dad on this.
Yeah, we literally see people's names blinking in neon lights, and yet that's still not as self-important as that shambling crap.
Did you have any other highlights from Miami, Will?
Yeah, I was also very I was surprised to like I wasn't sure if I was going to recognize anybody. It was only a little bit after the fact that like I would see like, okay, who were they married to? Didn't realize like my former favorite basketball player, the Scottie Pippen's ex, is there. That's interesting. Seeing,
and then surprise twist at the end when they do that. You know, what are they up to now?
Shyamalan.
And she's dating Michael Jordan's son now. So. Her husband's ex-husband's co-worker's son.
So she watched a lot of Bulls games, I guess. But seeing Martina showing up there, like that was a name. Yeah. It's like, oh, a legendary tennis player. Yeah, okay.
Martina Navratilova is
like that.
It's like a supporting cast member in the show, basically.
Yeah, so I showed up and I'm like, wait, are they like I saw the name, like, is that? And I'm Googling, I'm like, oh, holy hell, that is there she is. Married to former Miss USSR.
Yeah. There was a few years where there was such a thing as Miss USSR.
Yeah.
Fucking Gorbachev.
They came off as like the of all the people in the show, at least up to that point, and I guess after too, really, they came off as the most real. Like I believed, like none of it seemed like there was no cuts to reactions, no OMG faces, none of these. Like everyone else seemed to have a little bit of a, you know, there's a certain staginess to some of the stuff. It's mostly from like the party, because the party was just like, oh, we're gonna like throw this party, like it's a cast party. It's clearly something funded by, you know, the TV studio. Like it's, you know, it's clear. Like, and I also appreciated the fact that they didn't even try to hide some of the camera people. Like you can see them around during some shots. They're like, we like after as it progressed, we're like, you know what, it's just easier to show them. Like, let's not pretend that there's a veil of like we're you know, we're just a fly on the wall. It's like, no, we've put them here so that it bubbles over, and we turned on the heat on purpose. But seeing that couple, and it was exciting to see an actual queer couple in one of these shows, and that they were so real and loving and going through these challenges, and nothing about them seemed forced or staged. It was kind of refreshing in a way that like the stakes were very real for a lot of them, like especially the parents, as I said, but they I don't know, I was endeared to them very quickly. And even though they definitely seemed like ancillary characters throughout, like they weren't really involved with a lot of other people there. It was more just like, you know, here's this big group of friends that are eventually going to have this thing, and then also these two are here, and they're also in Miami, and also have money, and also seem to be enjoying a lunch, a lot of fun luncheons. I made a note of like that very first lunch, how they included in the editing the guy listing the specials. I don't know why, but that really stuck out to me. I'm just like, that's an odd choice. Like they could have just have had the dialogue and just had them talking. It's not like people would be like, well, I don't believe they're actually having lunch. It's like, well, let's have waiter come in. It's like, well, today's soup is. It's like, I mean, good for that person.
To be fair, on these shows, you don't actually often see people putting the food in their mouths. Like you don't actually see that often, with the exception of Real Housewives of New Jersey, where you see it all the time, because food is just such a big part of that culture.
From New Jersey, that'd be really
sometimes
weird
you get to see them manipulate the food with their hands.
That was a thing. I made a note of. There was a little thing on that. There was also the one person who in the show asked if you're going to eat something. We saw them eat something in this episode. There was which I made note of her name, but there was like, it was Alexia and the other, whoever rode in the car with her, another one of the older
Marisol, probably.
Oh, okay, probably.
She asked like, are you going to eat at this? And like, and it's like, I just hope there's good cocktails. And it was just very and that was kind of like the joke.
I remember that.
But then during like one of the speeches, she's the one person that they cut to, and you see her actually like take a bite of something and try it.
Wait, Alexia or Marisol?
Marisol.
Oh, okay, yeah. Marisol does often, I notice, insist that she doesn't eat. No, she does anyways, but I mean, she like...
but she was the one person asking if they would, and then she did. And I just thought that was interesting. Like, I just, you know, there was some weird connection to like someone who actually broached the subject did it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
for all the interest that brings. Yes.
No, it does bring it, just because it's very in keeping with Marisol's character too. Like she just loves like declaring things about herself that are not true. She does that all the time. Like when she takes somebody to go to a fat doctor and it's like, I don't use it myself though. I just like hang out and talk to him and just be like,
right.
Announces she doesn't have COVID after she got a COVID test and just always doing stuff like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Oh, and while I noticed this on my notes, just certainly a gripe I had for certain parts. Can't they just let them speak Spanish at times?
They do.
Sometimes
often.
they do.
Do they? Thank God. I thought this was like a whole America can't do subtitles thing. But
no, actually, this is remarkable in how often it actually happens.
Oh, good.
Typically.
Oh, good. Well,
often meaningfully. Like sometimes, like Alexia, especially when she'll like switch to speaking Spanish. Sometimes it's like, you know, she's being like, I really want to get this across. I really mean this.
Yeah.
Like when she says of Adriana, like es una perra, like she's a bitch. Like she switches to Spanish to say that, to like underscore, like not as a figure of speech. I mean it. She does that a lot.
Okay, then I'm glad to hear that, because it was starting to annoy me just where there were things as when they were getting heated or they're discussing things and they had to occasionally do subtitles for their English, because some obviously have very strong accents at certain points, or just when they try to speak over something else, their accent really starts to get in the way, and that's all well and good, but it's just let them speak in Spanish, and I'm glad to hear that they do. I'm glad that's not something I can tut the casual American audience, like, just read the subtitles, let them speak their actual language. It's like they can understand better, they can speak better. It's just it's not for us to decide like, well, I'm not comfortable with but no, I'm chuffed, I'll say, to hear that. Yes, I'm glad that there's some Spanish and lots of it.
So Dylan, what highlights did you have from this episode?
I love this episode. I thought it was awesome. A lot of the things that I liked were things that Will already mentioned. Like you said, Will, even though the conclusion is all about like trying to bring the friend group together, will Alexia and Marisol manage to forgive Adriana, and will they end on a note of inclusivity or still being against each other? But everything leading up to that is all about family. It's might as well be a Fast and the Furious movie. It's all about family. And I really like that. Like the opening, or near the top, when they have the bit with Lisa and her stepmother, who is discussing about Lenny's indiscretions. And I thought that was really interesting because, generally Lenny's mother is like gets very along with Lisa. And then she says something like, kind of puts a blame on her by saying that, like, you left him alone, like you went to New York for a couple of days and left him alone. Obviously no excuse for cheating, but, and like Lisa of course calls him out, right? Or like calls her out a little bit by saying like, that's obviously no excuse. But then she's kind of hesitant, kind of like, well, look what happened. And I thought that was an interesting example of like, Lisa being of a younger generation than this older woman, being like, that's not acceptable anymore. That's not how it works anymore. Our days. But then the mother being like, well, but look what happened. It's what, and I feel like that's kind of an example of what you also see with Nicole and her father, where it's like, it's easy to say like things have changed from earlier generations. But just saying it doesn't just make it the case. Like it's like you also have to find ways to actually change people's behavior, or you're just talking about a change of environment when the environment still remains the same. So that kind of question of what you can, I guess, force a younger generation to accept, or what a younger generation can force their parents to recognize as a new normal, is kind of a theme that runs through Lisa's discussion with her stepmother, and Nicole's a very emotional attempt to reconcile with her father, who comes from an unprivileged background, as he points out too, which is a part of the basis for why he behaves the way that he does. Not necessarily an excuse, but that's part of his roots and where he comes from. And even the stuff with Alexia and her different children, and her attempts to to nurture Frankie, and despite his disability, to try to make sure that he becomes like a good self-sustaining human being. I just thought that kind of generational push and pull, and and even with Lisa's kids too, like when she's talking with her stepmother, and then we kind of cut to scenes of her with her children too, and you realize that there's that kind of recognition that if she wants her children to actually live the values that she espouses, she's going to have to see that they're raised in a certain way.
Right.
So I think there's a lot about the difficulty of actually trying to impose values on the world in a real way, that isn't just like declaring what your values are. That I thought that kind of theme was really interesting, and the way that we see kind of different versions of it through different families was something that really spoke to me, that I thought was pretty cool. And the climax too, in the party, the melting pot party that Gertie organizes, also had some pretty good tension for me too, because it really wasn't clear if they were going to pull together and forgive Adriana the way that Gertie clearly wanted them to.
Yeah.
And I thought there was real tension in trying to figure out, like, are they going to end this with like everybody being like, okay, all's forgiven and forgotten, we're a team, we're a friend group. And they don't quite.
No, yeah. And I'm happy that we didn't get the sort of happy ending that we wanted, because I don't think it would be believable. But I thought that it was wrapped pretty nicely and sets us up to see, how true that reconciliation is in the next season that happens, or we'll even see that in the reunion, which comes out, which will be out by the time this podcast airs.
Yeah. So then that was interesting too, because you're right, Craig. Like, does Adriana deserve their forgiveness? And like, if you tie that to the other themes of like trying to impose certain values, it's like, well, if you want actual values to stick, you can't always just forgive everybody in every situation. So we still have that kind of unresolved dispute with Adriana, where her foot that was almost broken into 1,000 pieces is almost like the metaphor for like, it's her pain. How much do we have to account for her pain into her actions? And to what extent can you just forgive somebody because they're going through a lot? Or to what extent are you just letting people get away with anything if you keep forgiving them? And that kind of like two perspectives we have, like Julia's perspective as being like a very like forgiving person, like, wanting to take Adriana's side, and wanting to encourage everybody to see things from her perspective. And then the opinion of Marisol and Alexia, which is like, well, there are things that are beyond the pale, and at a certain point, you just can't accord forgiveness to anybody for everything. That's a kind of a something we've been dealing with for the past few episodes, and I thought that was kind of interesting to see it be the tension in the room in the finale that doesn't actually get resolved.
Yeah, I think it's a particularly interesting case with Adriana, because this might be a byproduct of the fact that she's not a full-blown housewife. She's a friend of, but her issues seem very trivial compared to some of the things the other women are going through. Like Alexia obviously has had years and years of dealing with Frankie's journey and trying to support him. We see Lisa in a very bitter, volatile divorce and relationship. And Marisol's pain towards her ex is something that is obviously very, very real. She speaks in this episode, I believe it was, about how it caused her to not eat and resurface her anorexia. And Adriana has this trivial, like, broken foot that she plays up, and she diminishes the Alexia's journey and Marisol's journey because she's in pain. It was pretty interesting to sort of get that contrast.
though I think like her broken foot is her like trying to concretize her like emotional pain. Like she's just trying to make everybody be aware of the fact that she's in extreme emotional pain and wants consideration for that. And like when she hurt her foot, that's like her attempt to be like, this is something that you can grab onto as like the image of my suffering.
Yeah. And I think that is like, she obviously is like truly suffering, because when Larsa really plays up, feeding her compliments and stuff, she responds to it like so honestly, like she just loves it. So there's definitely
a weird strategy by Larsa there. I'm not really sure what the outcome she was hoping for by just being like, oh, I'll just keep complimenting her condescendingly, and it didn't work out, like you said.
Yeah. I don't know if it was condescending. I felt like there was some honesty there. Like,
I feel like it was intended as condescending in the sense that she was trying to make it clear to Adriana, like, oh, you are just asking for us to like be nice to you. So I'll just keep doing that and make it clear to you that you're just going around saying, everybody be nice to me. Everybody be nice to me.
Yeah, this was actually something that stood out to me because it did come across um, as honest. Like she was honestly trying to seek balance, like some sort of like balance in terms of the relationship. She wanted stability, which is something that we haven't seen from Larsa at all this season. She's always been one to be an instigator of drama and trying to really cause tension and drama. And so it's interesting to see her at this point kind of reach for stability between the divided house that is the Miami Housewives.
Okay. Personally, I didn't quite read it that way. I thought it was her like trying to get Adriana to be upset with her by being like fake condescending nice, but
that's it's interesting that you had a bit of a different read, because I can see that, especially given the context of what Larsa has done. But Nicole also seemed to think that it was genuine and was she says that like Larsa taking this approach is endearing Larsa to Nicole, and that's a relationship that has had a lot of tension ever since last season. So to see her read that as honest, as someone who will typically not give Larsa the benefit of the doubt, validates me. I think it proves that I'm right.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Did you have any other highlights from this episode?
I mean, I always like to underscore Kiki just turning up to be fucking weird. I'm a big fan of Kiki, who's rarely appears for more than like a couple brief moments, but always is just reliably just a delightfully weird person. So I just like how she somehow misunderstands the term quail eggs and asks like, is that like a
quail
rat
eggs
or something?
Yeah.
She asks like a rat or something, and somebody tells her it's a bird, and she's like, oh, and you eat the legs? She's just delightfully uncomprehending. It's great.
Yeah, and when the smoke machine started, she was like, "Oh, there's lights and smoke coming out of my vagina."
Right, again, because she's also always thinking about getting laid too. Yeah, great stuff from her again. Always a strong supporting showing.
I think this melting pot party, I had marked it down. I'm looking at my notes right now, and I've marked it down several times. How like beautifully shot it is. Like it's a whole vibe. It is so aesthetically pleasing, despite the fact that it looks like it's like being done in a storage locker or something. There's like this big garage door, but it's so well lit. I think the neon and like the palm leaves and ferns and everything, just like it looks amazing. Like I want Gertie to plan a party for me.
It does come off well, and the mix of pastel colored dresses that they bring to it was like a good mix of colors. Very Miami vibes,
and even down to that like storage locker garage behind Gertie as she's giving a toast. The way that like the green light was reflecting off of it to give these bars behind her that really highlighted her. I loved watching this scene. I think it was just very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we covered most of my highlights for Miami. Let's get into Vanderpump Rules a little bit before we get into our highlights. If you haven't checked out the episode we did earlier this week on the Scandival, check it out. We go over in depth what happened between Tom Sandoval and Raquel. Will, to catch you up to speed, off-camera drama happened 1 week ago today when it was revealed that Tom Sandoval and Raquel had been having a long-term affair behind the back of Ariana, which is something that not a lot of people saw coming. Since that episode taping, what's happened is Kristen Doughty has been spotted filming. So, the queen is back.
I hope you're taking notes, Will.
Yes. Strong mental ones.
And Raquel and
legacy
Tom,
information.
Raquel and Tom were apparently kissing during the first scene that they filmed together post Scandival breaking, which is something that has outraged people. We love to see it. Oh, yeah. And Raquel has been granted a temporary restraining order against Sheena after allegedly Sheena gave her a black eye. Social media detectives think that this black eye is fake, maybe faker than Heather Gay's black eye drama on Salt Lake City this past season. There's been people digging up posts from a few weeks ago where Raquel is seen with darkness around the eye that matches the photos that came out. What do you think about this restraining order, Dylan?
I don't know. I think we need more information to know the truth. But if she got truly hit by Sheena, then it's totally fair to ask for a restraining order against somebody who hits you, I think.
Yeah, it's fair. I don't know that it's the right move, in my opinion. I feel like Raquel's really fumbling her handling on this. It's not the best way to leverage this situation if you're trying to be a reality TV star. Because to me, it seems like this is a measure for her to get out of having to show up at the reunion. If she's got a restraining order against Sheena, she can't appear when they shoot the reunion, and it seems to me like it's an effort for her to try to avoid being held accountable. So that is pretty disappointing.
You could see it from the angle of like she turned up the heat and now she can't handle it and she wants to back down, or I don't know.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about, how it seems a bit strange that they're planning to tack this on to the end of this season as opposed to saving it for the next season. And I'm wondering if maybe that is because they expect the rest of the cast to ice out Raquel and or Sandoval, and they won't have enough people to shoot with for the duration of the next season, which is something that is always like pretty unfortunate to see when a cast takes this stance, because we don't get to see things play out the way, in full, the way that we should. But it's something that is like common. We see it on Housewives all the time, where people will be like, well, we're not going to shoot with them.
Sure. Yeah.
Will, were you surprised here about Scandival, the scandal?
Have you recovered?
I'll be honest. What I just heard, you may as well have said, this tin of mixed beans and this tin of baked beans are in a fight, and this tin of baked beans is not allowed to go to the pinto bean party, and also lettuce, carrots. I'm just thinking about food. I don't know. This show, I had a real hard time digging into anything. It was like a hawk trying to pick up oatmeal. Like I had. Like I kept trying. I'm diving in, and I'm like, I want to get something to hold on to, but it's just I I made note that it wasn't until like the middle of the episode where something made my ears perk, like, oh, okay, that's a real topic. And it felt, because like sobriety, like the whole issues of sobriety came up like halfway through. And I thought, like, it's almost brave of them to like not lead with that, because that's like the most dramatic thing that happened or was talked about. And it seems like that to me would be kind of like the hook to bring you in. Whereas the beginning of the episode, I didn't realize that I thought I was misinterpreting the timeline, because when they were cutting between people, they seem so similar that I thought it was the same person that they were following. And it's like, okay, so someone's on a hike, but they're also vlogging themselves at a at a gym or something.
Yeah.
Also, I made note of the fact that like I hadn't heard the term vlogging since 2010.
Yeah, that stood out to me, that they were vlogging in this way. I mean, obviously vlogging is still a thing. Like YouTube is a big deal, but
yeah,
the way
usually
that they
people
were
say
going
they're
about
live
it,
streaming or something. And of course it was so funny where it's like, oh, you vlogging this? Of course I'm vlogging this. And they were just like, hey, going to the whole extended hand, just a complete Gen Z caricature of Gen Z, just like, everything I'm doing has to be with an extended arm. And
those are full ass millennials, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, sure, fine. Very millennial of them.
But the approach to this, like social media over the past, I don't know, like 5 years, maybe longer than that, has become so much higher effort, like in things like YouTube and Instagram. It takes so much more polish in order to stand out. People are expecting that, and to see, Sheena and Brock just walking around with this stupid little handheld camera, making a half-ass attempt at vlogging, and they even forget that they're doing it, stood out to me.
Like he was sitting on the floor and there was conversations, and it's a funny thing to have happen when you're clearly on a show, you're being filmed. It's like, you know what, you can chill a bit. You've made it. You're on TV. People are going to watch you in these painted on outfits doing whatever it is that you do. And every single person there took turns like wearing something. Oh, is this cute? Is this cute? And it's like, you're wearing Post-it notes. Like, yes, you've got attention. People are watching. They're not listening. There's nothing said except for weird pronunciations of mariachi and like, and I like the implied. I wrote implied knowledge of Zoolander appreciated. They made a reference to that as
Katie
if it's
clearly just watched Zoolander the night before she filmed that confessional.
It's like, this is the one villain reference that she has in the chamber, but
I loved it. Larsa Pippen surely would not have picked up on that reference, but Katie says you can't blame Zoolander for trying to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia, regarding Raquel trying to make out with Tom, implying that Sheena is Mugatu.
And has like programmed someone with a song to then do evil deeds.
In this case, a podcast called Shenanigans.
Oh, well, then of course.
Shenanigans is the relax in this scenario.
Gotcha. All right. Yes. Well, we've all done horrible things post Shenanigans, I suppose. So that's my long ass way of saying, how do I feel about that one particular issue? I am without feeling for it. I'm afraid to admit that. Yeah.
So while I was watching this, I was thinking about how you would view this without any sort of context, and I think that this episode I'm not surprised that you struggled to sink your teeth into it, because there is like a lot of implied knowledge leading into this, that the stakes would not seem quite as high in these relationships if you didn't have that and you were viewing it out of context. So I'm not totally surprised. I'm wondering what you picked up on in terms of some of the relationships that we see or don't see. We barely see Tom Schwartz during this episode, but he is the ex-husband of Katie Maloney, who is featured prominently. And did you pick up anything about that relationship that stood out to you at all?
If I can recall who they like, was that the guy who was talking about like he was a partner as in part one of the restaurants because they had that one meeting scene where these guys were like talking about possibly getting, they were like made an offer. It's like, oh well, we could pay you such and such if you need, and he says like, well, that was just what we paid initially, so they wouldn't be making anything off of it. They would just be getting back what they deposited into it. Was that one of the guys?
Yeah, so Tom Sandoval and Tom Schwartz were in that conversation.
Yeah, the Tom and Tom. I noticed that at the beginning of the credits. I thought, like, is that the gimmick? Like, it's a Tom and Tom show.
Tom Sandoval is the one with the mustache and the enormous hat,
and he's the one that like says in his confessional
kidnap a monkey in a yellow suit.
Right. Okay.
I got Dudley Do Right for that hat, but I'm glad that you had a note about that as well.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you're right in that I very much struggled to grip anything as far as who had a relationship with who. There was the odd flashback, and I couldn't tell if they were flashing back to them interacting with a random person at a club or someone I should know. And then they would do like current, like, oh, and now they're hitting on people again at a club, and they introduced one of them as like, here's a new character, it seems, or something. But everything else was like, they could be flashing back, they could be coming back. I don't know if it matters. I just, all I got was that, some people really wanted to make out or just wanted to use the words making out as a weapon. They were trying to weaponize that term in that just the sheer threat of someone making out with someone in proximity to another is enough to, I don't know, make them so upset that they've got to go buy some more clothes or something.
This season, like, I haven't heard the words make out used this much since like the 6th grade. Like,
it was very much like, it was very much, 6th grade answers to 19-year-olds problems. And it was, it was just, it was hard to grip onto anything because I couldn't really get a sense of whole characters. I kept asking myself, do they have jobs? Why are we following them? And it seemed like there was a lot of people. It seems like we were getting introduced to a lot of folks, a lot of faces, very little standout personalities. And then those that did were clearly like the title person. Like, when you see the two oldest people there, it's like, okay, well, these are clearly the head of something. It has to be, this is where the money started and clearly trickled down. It definitely wasn't ground up. This is not a new money gathering of people. They're all trying to be. Well, actually, no, I'm using the word try with them, and that seems very generous. They weren't really trying to, I couldn't tell if they were anything. Are they just famous for being famous or what this was?
Okay, so the context for this show is it started following the like drama of bartenders and servers at a restaurant owned by Lisa Vanderpump, who was a housewife on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. We see her during this episode, and this cast is one that honestly was servers and bartenders, but we've been following them for so long. Like, they are successful for being on this show now, and we're just continuing to follow their journey. Is kind of the backstory there.
Kind of what I was suspecting, that it seemed like that it wasn't so much like, because it had a lot of the air of, you get, especially in these in American shows or reality shows, you'll have something like, well, here's the main focus purpose, like say like America's Next Top Model kind of thing, where like, okay, you're getting all these little asides and bits of drama and who likes who hates who or whatever, but that is, adjacent to the fact that they have a job to do. They're striving for something. Whereas here, I didn't get that they were really striving for much of anything. There was a lot of just kind of coasting. Like, they've clearly established that their occupation is reality TV personality, and they all seem very content with that. And then there was like the odd little pockets of people that seemed to be trying to do something, but it seemed like it was all the side dramas of a goal-oriented show, but without the goal. Like, it seemed like there was no main thrust to it. So it just seemed like it's all the peripheral asides, and with that, it's like, well, I'm not rooted. And of course, I'm coming in so late into it. It's a spin-off show, and so I'm not just on the edges. I'm skidding right off the rails of it. Like, I'm so far away from where the center focus point started, it seems, of the initial Housewives scenario, where there would have been characters established there, the early seasons and the character development there. And now I'm coming in seeing it like, yep, these are young people who now can just enjoy being young. And I envy their youth, and I hate their youth. And so I'm just sitting there.
Most of the people
bitter.
on the show are about the same age as you.
Yeah.
Like, most of these people are like late 30s.
Yeah,
well, except still, like Raquel's younger, James is younger, I guess. But the main cast members are like pushing 40.
Well, then their lifestyle is a youthful one. They have the they have the priorities of a kid without homework. Like, they're just able to do whatever, talking to their cameras that they forgot to turn on, that they left on the gym floor.
Yeah.
and just, like, I couldn't understand. I even made a note when they did that whole piñata scene, and they sit there and they're like, it's like, are you like turned on right now? It's like, I'm not turned on. And I just wrote the words, Jesus, what the fuck? Like, what? And then the reaction's like, oh my God, like, to what? What happened? What just happened there? Was she implying that the piñata turned her on? So, is that what actually happened?
No. So for context on this,
please, some context.
The drama leading up to this, and that you kind of see hinted at during portions of this, was that Raquel was asking Tom Schwartz, who is Katie's ex-husband, to make out, and there's kind of this potential of a relationship that is hurtful to Katie, that is being alluded to there. So when they're asking Raquel, do you want to make out with this piñata that is supposedly supposed to look like Tom Schwartz?
It's uncanny. They say it's uncanny, Drake.
Yeah.
Are you going to doubt their word?
Well, I mean, it looked like Mark Zuckerberg to me.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure I was like, maybe Justin Long? I was trying to figure out who it looked like.
Yeah.
But yeah. Not Tom Schwartz. So.
Yeah, so when they're like, oh, are you turned on? They're stoking the fires of like this potential Raquel and Tom Schwartz relationship, which turns out to be a deflection for this actual affair that Tom Sandoval and Raquel are having, the Scandoval relationship.
Yes.
That's like the paratextual elements. That's like not in the show, but that's
okay.
Like,
yeah.
If you follow the news, that's what you know. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Which maybe I'll do henceforth.
So I think that those who do follow the news were anxiously awaiting this episode to see what sort of clues they could glean off of this episode about the Scandoval and what was going on. And I don't think we really got that, which is unfortunate, but there's a lot of season left, so we might still get lots of that. This is a bit of an anomaly since the girls are on a cast trip and we don't really see any of the boys otherwise. But we didn't really get this big, a big deluge of clues about this affair in this episode.
Well, what we do get is some people starting to feel a little more suspicious about Raquel or wondering what her motives are. I think
Christina Kelly. Yeah,
Christina Kelly especially kind of isn't totally buying the idea that she's completely innocent and naive, and because she seems to have no thoughts in her head whatsoever. So like, just like I try to watch the episode just the text, without like the paratextual knowledge of what's going on outside of it. And it is kind of interesting how, like I mentioned before, there's more of a centering of Raquel, and we're kind of starting to get a little bit more glimmers of like who she actually is as a person, because people tend to look at her as being almost a non-entity, which is why she kind of gets away in Katie's eyes with not absorbing any responsibility for asking Schwartz to make out, because Katie thinks that she's such a blank slate that surely it was Sheena who picked up the chalk and wrote on that blank slate. She couldn't have like produced a thought in her own head. And then, but we see some people starting to push back on it. Like I said, Christina Kelly is like kind of dubious about this. And when they bring it up in front of Lisa kind of says the same thing. Like, well, surely Raquel's the one who did it. And now Sheena's out of your wedding and Raquel's here at the table and going on the girls' trip with you. Little strange, but you understand, because like, it's Raquel is newly single, unsure of herself, and like just doesn't seem to have any kind of like direction and stuff. So you don't see her as having any kind of strategizing or malevolent intent, which maybe she doesn't too. Like, I'm not gonna dispute that it was just like an idea that was given to her, and she was like by somebody, whether it was Sheena or not. But it's interesting to see a lot of the episode kind of dealing with that. And Lala too, kind of like taking Raquel under her wing. And then when Raquel goes and makes out with that guy, I forget his name, that they meet in Las Vegas, and Lala's, Oliver, right?
Yeah.
And Lala's like, if it was a competition, I would have pulled him, not you.
Yeah.
And I actually believe her about that.
Yeah, I believe that too.
She probably would have been able to, but it's a little bit like her like nurturing an apprentice who then kind of, swoops in and goes over her head a little bit. So I think Lala too is starting to like look a slightly more askance at Raquel. Like, is she planning more than we think that she's planning? And it's interesting. It's kind of an open question, because Raquel doesn't give you that much to work off of in terms of analyzing how she's interpreting things.
Yeah, and also the only potential like motivation that we get to see during this episode for Raquel intentionally trying to hurt Katie is in a confessional where she alludes to the fact that there's a bit of a beef because Katie didn't come to the puppy party her and James
which was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Which that never would have occurred to me. Like, that was just like an inconsequential thing that happened way back in the day. And like,
so Will, this is the payoff.
If that's her villain origin story,
years.
Oh my god! That would be amazing if that was her villain origin story.
Like, I see a seed was planted many seasons ago, and now it's bared bitter fruit.
I joke a bit, but actually, like, that is one of the things that is appealing about watching these shows. You get things that you wouldn't expect to come back and serve as motivators that, if you're writing a novel, you're not going to have crumbs like this that stick in your characters the way that things like a very minor slight, like not coming to a puppy party would stick with an actual person.
Yeah.
Dylan, what highlights did you have marked down here?
That was the main thing, just the ongoing attempts to interpret Raquel and just kind of try to figure out, like, is she evolving? Is she like on the cusp of developing object permanence? Like, you feel like you're witnessing an intelligence form, but it's not clear how to interpret it. That's mostly it. I do really like the little. I really like Katie's delivery when she's at the bar with Christina Kelly, and Christina Kelly orders a soda, and the little hesitation before she says tequila is like it was just like a great line delivery. It reminded me of like Paul Newman at the end of The Color of Money saying, "I'm back." Just like Tequila Katie is in the house.
Yeah, very much like putting on the Batman mask.
Exactly.
Ordering tequila.
Like if like Bruce Wayne hadn't been Batman for like a couple years, and then it's like, this situation requires it. Like, this situation calls for Tequila Katie. There's like a light goes up in the sky, and it's like the outline of a Jose Cuervo bottle.
I took that line as a flirt, honestly. I thought that was that's something you say when you're like, because she like they went up and there was those guys at the bar and that weird like, oh, can we
Yacht
order
Rock
here?
Tim Gray.
It's like, yeah, as if these guys are gonna be like, no, go away, boys only. And so of course they go there, and then just the way she like, and the body like she was, they didn't stop facing them. I might be misremembering it, but it seemed like she was facing the boys the whole time. And then it's like, what are you having, like tequila, as if to say like, wink, I'm here to party, boys. Care to also order some tequila with me? I took that as like, I don't know, like you guys know the character better than I do, is if it's a declaration or a, breaking open the shirt to reveal the big T and the lime
honestly, it's
symbol.
Both.
It's both. Yeah. The again, the like subtext there for like longtime viewers is that there's a joke about Katie becoming Tequila Katie, like a different personality when she gets drunk, when she has too much tequila.
Okay.
And like just getting messy when she has too much tequila, basically. But you're still rage
texting.
Like, it's that as well.
Yeah. It's a Frank the Tank inside joke kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting, Will, you brought up James talking about his drinking stuff as like something that has like actually a bit of weight to it. And it does. It's just that I'm like really tired of it at this point, because it's been like years and years and years of James being like, I'm not drinking anymore. Well, I'm just having a little bit of a drink, like for constantly. So I'm just sick of that, like being the way that he's
such a wiener. Yeah.
He's such a wiener.
Just a flake.
So great. I cannot stand that guy.
Yeah. No,
I love James. I don't mind that we see this back and forth. I think the instability of James and his like never ending wavering on his sobriety or like committing to anything is a defining feature of him that I think works very well on television.
Yeah, but it's just been the same thing though for like years and years. That's my issue with it. Like I feel like there's never going to be any evolution on James. He's just the same fucking guy.
I thought that this episode was good at kind of highlighting that. It added a bit of a dimension since we got to see a lunch between James and his mom and Allie. That is a complicated relationship. James's mom has gone sober since we've seen her last, I think. Maybe she was sober the previous times we saw her, but definitely when she was introduced on the show, she was not.
Yeah.
This lunch was one of the highlights for me, actually. I thought it was interesting to see James's mom talking about how she dislikes Raquel. I wish that we got a bit more of a confessional from Allie about how that makes her feel, whether she just takes that as, oh, Raquel is obviously, a bad person, so that's why she feels that way, or if she reads that as something that would be a potentially complicated relationship that she'll inevitably have with James's mom as their relationship goes on, because we do see over the history of the show that James's mom has complicated relationships with James's partners. Notably, this is, I think, the first time we've heard about that with Raquel, but there was notable incidents with Kristen in the past when James was dating Kristen. Apparently, James's mom stealing $400 from Kristen's credit card or something like that to get Botox. And Kristen also alleged that when James's mom was drinking, she admitted to robbing a bank of like $28,000 or something like that. So she's got complicated relationships with James's partners, and I am curious as to how that is read by Allie.
Yeah.
I did think that it was interesting later when we saw at the spa when James was like, well, do you like it when I'm drinking or not? I was surprised to see that Allie actually had the backbone to say that she prefers when he's sober, because I've said it before on the podcast that I don't think Allie has really like given us that much. So I was surprised to see her take a stance. Like even in this James mom lunch, the previous scene that we see them in, like Allie is just there. Like, I mean, and she looks young. Like, I'm surprised the server didn't just drop off some crayons and the kids menu for her. She's just there, kind of in her own world for the most part.
Yeah. And since they talk a little bit about like decorating Lisa's restaurants, I think now is as good a time as any to point out that I think the decor on Lisa's restaurants is fucking horrible. Just wanted to get that out of my system. Just so tacky. And also, why does she have like a restaurant in Las Vegas called Paris by Vanderpump or something? What are you talking about?
Yeah, they've got a huge banner on the Arc de Triomphe there.
Yeah, they like built a fake Arc de Triomphe and put a banner of Lisa Vanderpump's face on it. The emissary of Paris, this English woman from LA. All right.
It's things like that. They lose meaning. It's like when you go to IKEA and there's a, London poster you can buy. It's like, oh, this doesn't mean you went there. It just means you recognize the word London.
Yeah.
It's all just meaningless gobbledygook, it would seem. Because I was confused.
Lisa loves to like kind of pretend she's French too. Like I've seen her say that she speaks perfect French, and I've also seen her speak French, and she's grading herself very generously.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, I mean, also like the new place that the Toms have is also pretty garish, but I like it more. Like I like the wallpapers, the eclectic wallpapers, and like
it leans into it a bit more.
It leans into more being like when they have a reception, a guy calls it like an old Hollywood look, and like it's more of that like tiki bar or like classic burger diner like thing, which also very tacky, also very over decorated, but not as awful to my eyes as the like, metal surfaces and fake marble and pink and flowers and all the recessed lighting everywhere and chandeliers that you get in the Vanderpump places, which are just an eyesore.
Yeah, for sure.
So just wanted to say that. Just wanted to get off my chest.
Did you have any other highlights?
No, well, I'm on the subject of bashing Lisa. Like, Sandoval is right to say that, like, that it's like a kind of a shitty offer to just like offer to buy him out for his initial investment.
Yeah.
Especially when that was framed initially of Lisa and Ken being like, oh, they're going through a hard time financially. We should help them. We should help them. I thought they were going to like offer to buy out Greg, their business.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And Schwartz and Saddies. But no, they're not helping them. They smell blood in the water. Like there's vulnerability in their financial position, and they're looking to take advantage of their financial vulnerability to get their stake in Tom for basically an unfair refund. So anyways, that's about it.
Yeah, the only other note that I've got here that I wanted to mention was I think that James showed a bit of self-awareness in this, and with regards to his drinking. Like he is not denying that it is like potentially unwise when his mom asks him like, oh, do you think it's wise? And to her he's like, oh yeah, it's fine. But we get a confessional where he's like, do I think it's wise that I'm drinking? No. And then he follows it up by saying, like, no, it's not wise. If I was a wise old man, Mr. Yoda, I'd move to Budapest and become a monk. Because I guess there's monks in Budapest.
Yeah, I wasn't too sure about his reference point there. But,
yeah, it's where the Buddhis come from, don't you know?
Yeah.
The mini Buddhas.
So I don't have any other highlights. Any final thoughts from either of you guys?
I definitely, the one note that I left off from or didn't get to for Miami was, man, that song was bad. You know what I'm talking like, we have to hear okay, it's just a demo, and they play the demo.
No,
the demo song, like legend. They're building them up like legendary producer and everything, and then it's like, here's just the demo, and I hear them like, oh, please.
He is a legend, though.
He is. I do not question. I recognize the name. But I mean, don't finish that song. Like, some things can just stay as a demo. Give it another go, or change the lyrics at least, or something. I don't know. I just heard that, and I was suddenly taken aback to, reminded of, actually, when you're asking what were some of my reality show origins. There was in my younger days, a bit of a gauntlet I had to run when I was a reviewer, and I still do like reviews to this day. But I was assigned a lot of things, and for a while there, I was assigned a lot of DVDs for reality shows, such as, and be very out of context. This reminded me of a lot of, like, I would get season like 3 of Jersey Shore and be like, review this, and I've never seen any of it before. And so I was getting a little bit of a memory of, like, oh right, this is what it's like to have no context and just dive into these shows. But that song reminded me of when I had to review an old reality show called Gigolos. And,
I've heard about this.
Yeah, where it's literally, it's a house of male gigolos in probably Vegas, maybe Miami, some typical place in America. And they each had, then they clearly gave them each like a weird little story gimmick, aside from just they're dumb and hot, and so their only job they're good for is professional porking, and they can't and so they gave them, like, one guy was trying to be a business entrepreneur and kept trying to bring that up, like his business idea, and one of them they tried to make like a rapper / singer, and he had this song that he kept pitching over and over again, where he's rapping like, I'm a gigolo, and the lyrics, that's all I can remember of the lyrics. He just opens with, I'm a gigolo, and he tries to thug it up. And so I heard that song, I was just all taken back to, like, oh right, wow, I've heard a bad song in reality TV before.
Well, Housewives music is a genre all onto itself. Like,
I believe it. Like the transition music and such, you mean? Like the scoring?
No, like the actual Housewives releasing music.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
so
I believe
it is graded on a different metric than a lot of the music that you would listen to, but it's still fun. I'm excited to know that there's more music coming from Adriana. I think the song that we heard this season, Faya, FYAH, is maybe not as good as Alexia ends up giving it credit for, but we'll see what she releases.
Yeah, Adriana's song is the one thing that they seem to consider untouchable.
Yeah. Like, they legit think this is a banger there.
Yeah, either that or there's like a certain omerta where you don't criticize each other's songs.
Yeah.
That's where the line exists. Like, you can betray each other, you can sleep with each other's partners, but if someone sits down and composes a 2-minute jingle, then that it's sacrilege to condemn it.
Well, thank you very much for doing this, Will. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm always out and about for, I guess, check out, I got it in hand, Surplus of Popes. That's the best thing I got going right now. There's a new book coming out this year. There's a new game, possibly 2 games coming out this year. So keep an eye out for in the socials under Yak and Shadow, or through Surplus of Popes, or even, I guess, my movie reading site, moviemarbles.com. It's all still out there. New content always coming, but via the Twitters and Instagrams that I've gathered, there'll be announcements for the new book and the new games rather soon. They're very, very close to being revealed.
Awesome. And Dylan, how about yourself?
So, yeah, I mean, you can find me on Mind Over Splatter with Will, also in most episodes, talking about horror movies, which is what we've been doing this whole time. You just didn't notice. It was very subtextual.
It's a different kind of horror.
Yeah.
To see people who forgot to vlog. Where's the camera? Oh no. The call came from inside the restaurant.
Yeah, we're not actually doing new episodes, but we've got a whole back catalog of shows about horror movies. And I'm on Substack, Dylan Ferguson on Substack. Still writing about horror movies there too. I just did a piece where I reviewed all the Stab movies, even though they don't exist.
Awesome. And I've been Craig Midwinter. You can find us online at bravooutsider.com. and on Instagram at Bravo Outsider. Until next week, keep it real.
Keep looking behind you.
Keep looking behind you.